And so looking back at assumptions that you have, external pressures that are on you, and it all happens subconsciously. You're not actually aware of it when it's happening. I wasn't aware when I was in school that I was focusing on people pleasing more than my own needs.
In 1837, Horace Mann created the education system, a system at the time designed to pump out factory workers and professors. The same system that is still being used today in the 21st century. Now, Mann's system is backfiring. We are being moulded by the same industrial system that has existed for close to 200 years. That system delivers us into a digital economy that has no need of our outdated skills. This isn't our teachers' fault. This isn't the government's fault. This is due to a rapidly changing world full of technology and unforeseen circumstances. And us Gen Zs are caught in the middle. Welcome to the Driven Young podcast, the podcast for stressed, overwhelmed young Australians, teaching you practical life skills you can implement now to set yourself up in life. And now your host, Byron Dempsey.
Welcome back to the Driven Young podcast, and today I'm joined by Rebecca Tamas, aka my HSC mentor. Beck is an awesome human who works in the education system supporting young students. She can speak 6 languages to varying competencies and has travelled to over 30 countries. She is currently promoting the Sustainable Development Goals through her work as head teacher of languages in the Hunter region in Australia. In this episode, we discuss how to land scholarships travelling the world while studying, why travelling is so important, how to deal with the pressure of school and uni, finding your place in the world, and how to take a gap year, and so much more. Beck has just started the side business called MYHSCMENTOR. For anyone international, HSC stands for High School Certificate. So if you're studying the HSC or whatever equivalent it is where you live, you should check out her free ebook called Hack the HSC. The link is down below. As per usual, please DM me on Instagram if you enjoy this episode. You can grab a copy of my brand new book at www.drivenyoung.com/book. And if you live in the Sydney area and you want to join my gap year program, I am running a beta test group from December to February for 3 months. It is going to be amazing, from boat parties to bush retreats to black tie formal events, workshops, personal development, fun, dancing. Everything you need in 3 months will be provided for you. You can find out more at www.drivenyoung.com/IGY. So that's www.drivenyoung.com/IGY. That stands for Intentional Gap Year. Now, over to Beck. Beck, welcome so much to the podcast.
Thank you. Great to be on here with you.
Really excited. Beck, or I guess in brackets, my HSC mentor, which is a new project you're working on, which I'm keen to chat more about. So we're going to be talking today, I guess, about HSC or your final year of high school. We're going to be talking about your story, how you've done traveling and studying and a whole bunch of stuff in between. You're now leading a team of teachers at a school with over 1,400 kids. So it was really cool that you reached out to me because it's very aligned in what we're doing. Before we get into, I guess, the practical side of things, can you just share a little bit about your life? Specifically, what did you do after high school and what are you currently up to?
Yeah, sure. So I got to the end of high school and just kind of brainstormed with my mentor what the things were that I was passionate about and interested in. And then from there sort of brainstormed a possible career and then started studying it. But I believe that like an advice to a younger self would be to delve into that process a bit more before jumping. I sort of jumped into it. And so after school, I traveled a lot, actually. I went to university and got scholarships to the value of over $50,000 throughout my whole degree. And I really got to...
And sorry, how did you get those? Because I think a lot of people would love to travel and for free, not travel for free, but get your university paid for while traveling.
Yeah. And travel is the biggest teacher. So I got those at the start of every year, going through the scholarships that were made available at my university. And it would literally be on my list for every year. I would do that at the start of the year. And then people would say to me like, oh, are you going to apply for all the ones that you're eligible for? And I was like, heck yeah, why wouldn't I? So I just put my name in for every single one. Like I even got a scholarship to go study in the Philippines. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I got it. I don't think that's going to line up. So I didn't actually take that one. But just putting your name out there in every possible way, anything you're eligible for, you just need to apply for as a scholarship.
So it's just and the thing is, I spoke about scholarships in another episode. My mate, he got a scholarship and he was like, yeah, once you do one scholarship, you do 3, you do 4, you can just copy and paste and just rearrange the words a little bit And once you've gotten the flow of it, you can smash them out. The first one might take a day to complete, but then the second one you can do half a day. By the time you're doing your 10th scholarship, you're just copy and pasting different parts and putting it all together.
Absolutely. So like, yeah, saving a folder somewhere and having all my past applications was a big help along the way. So it took the time out of it, and it just made it like a little thing where you copy and paste and adjust it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think because I had no idea about scholarships you knew of them, but you didn't know how to do any of it, and it wasn't really pushed on me or anyone I really knew. Like, not many of my friends have scholarships, and it's like it's such a little amount of work for such a potential high reward. It's
Absolutely.
like for a few days' work, you could get $50,000 worth of scholarships. It's like you'd be stupid not to do it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's crazy. So they're all to different countries, the ones I got. New Caledonia, France, Japan, China. So it was an amazing experience. And on the way to those countries, you're allowed to use the scholarship money to extend stopovers and visit other countries as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it was like you really were like traveling, having fun while also doing a degree.
Absolutely. And the scholarship pays for rent, accommodation, food,
Wow.
even drinks, depending on the scholarship. Yeah.
What a different experience to like still living at home, catching the train into university, doing half your lectures online, and then and just completing it versus going to France and then Belgium and then Germany and meeting all these people while also having everything paid for. It's like that is, and obviously not everyone can get the scholarship, but it's like how many people don't even try?
That's right. So many. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard a thing, and it's like the Australian government has like $2 million worth of scholarships they cannot give away every year because people aren't applying. And it's like, this is such a silly, it's just such a no-brainer to me. It's like, if you're going to do university, do it and travel, and you can kill so many birds with one stone at the same time. You can have such a fun time. You can do so many cool things and learn. Because as you mentioned, I agree with what you said earlier. Travel is the best teacher.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome. Well, I mean, sorry to interrupt about the scholarships. I just wanted to like unpack how that worked and everything, because I think a lot of people, will be interested in that. But yeah, so you went and started traveling and studying overseas. What happened next?
Yeah. So then I came back from my travel and I went into a first year teaching job in my area, and then applied to a second school in my area. And then at that job, it's kind of a crazy time in my life, but that's when promotion within my area became available. So there's only one head teacher language position in the Hunter region. So it's, I could travel 2 hours any direction from here and not come across another person in my job. It's something that people usually get when they're closer to retirement than
and to clarify to listeners, you live about 3 hours outside of Sydney.
Yeah.
Oh, 3 hours?
Yeah, 3 hours. So in Newcastle.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a smaller town, 3 hours from Sydney. So obviously there's a lot less positions happening.
Yeah. So yeah, it was this massive career job that I'd really wanted and thought about, and it has kind of been a turning point in my life. That's kind of been a crazy time when I got this position, and at the same time my dad passed away, and it was really sudden, and everything sort of imploded, I would say, all at once.
Yeah, wow. And so I guess you had something really great happening, but then something really awful happening at the same time, and figuring out, I guess your emotions are all over the place.
Yeah, it just made me really aware how fragile life is, and no day is promised. You really need to be living consciously. And I think if we promoted that from a younger age, instead of promoting success and a financial sum that you think you should be earning, or I just feel like if we promoted that after school and we really put the value on self-discovery instead of reaching this idea of success, it would look totally different in people's lives. Everything would unroll in a different way.
Well, that's it. I think the key word you use there is self-discovery. Like, I think that's so important. And and that's kind of where I'm a big fan of taking a gap year or doing what you did and traveling while you study, because not only are you studying and getting your degree, but you're also learning more about yourself and cultures and stuff. But yeah, it's actually interesting. Similarly to what you just said, actually almost to the day a year ago, I met Brent, whose episode I think maybe you listened to, or maybe I gave you Joe's, but Brent, who's now my mentor, and I help run Empower You, his business. So I'm one of the speakers for that. He's been training me up for the past 12 months, which has been an incredible opportunity. when I met him, I was on this high of like opportunity. We did a great interview. I was like, this is awesome. And then I went home and found out my grandma had just had a heart attack and was in hospital.
No.
And it was the exact same as you. It was like this massive ricochet of
Mm.
incredible opportunity career wise, but then my grandma's about to die. And she magically pulled through and she's still alive today. Like we said our goodbyes. We fully said our goodbyes. She was supposed to die and she just didn't. But it was just that emotional whiplash of like all this stuff happening, and it kind of makes you sit back and go, wow, life is fragile.
Yeah, it's been a crazy. I really think of it as two separate chapters. So for me, there was like this first part of my life where it was kind of, you're raised and conditioned. The word condition can sound quite negative, but really I had a loving family and a great upbringing. But it's just there was a lot driven into me about I had to be my best. But then the idea of my best, it was actually my best became what society told me to be, right? And what you think your parents want for you. And so the words, I was always trying my best, it sounds like it's very much about me, but I hadn't had the time to do the self-discovery and really look inwards and do the work and piece out what I really am passionate about deeply, rather than just a surface, I like this and this, and then they're like, this career might line up. So then I went and did it. Like, I just think there's a lot more that can be unraveled for a young person if they just have the time before hitting university degrees. Yeah,
and that's where like you kind of mentioned like you discovered that at what age? Like after you'd already graduated?
Yeah, so I reckon I honestly probably started to get deeply in tune with myself, my wishes, and my intuition at about 27. So that's why, like, I want to talk about this today, because there are people that are 17 and 18 listening, and if they can just be told this perspective, maybe something will change,
Yeah, I just think people really need to consciously put an effort to discover who they are. It's not just going to happen. Maybe it will happen, but it might happen in 10 years' time. And so it's like, if you could have that realization at 18 or 19, which maybe was impossible and you needed to travel and do that stuff to realize it, you never know. But I think by spending a bit more time to focus on self-discovery and figure out what you really want to do, it can only be beneficial to you, because your degree is always going to be there. You don't have, like, you could do your degree now at 27 and finish, and you're 30 with a degree. Like, there's no rush to finish your degree. You would know, like, everyone in degrees are different ages. You got someone who's 30, someone who's 19 and 24 and everything. So yeah, I think the key word I think is self-discovery. I think it's really important.
And like, even all the energy that I put into getting a band 6 to enter a teaching degree, like, that energy could have gone into myself.
Yeah.
And unpacking, me getting in tune with myself, looking back at my past and what conditioning is there and what assumptions are there and what society putting on me that's not truly me.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the whole thing. It's like, I also think instead of, sacrificing all this time to get a band 6 for your teaching degree, maybe you could have gone to more parties or had more of a social life. Because what do you think back when you look back at your, school life now? Do you remember the studying, or do you remember the parties and having fun with people and stuff?
Yeah. Relationships.
And the relationships you had, and even relationships with the teachers, like, relationship with teachers can be really valuable. I've still got teachers I'm in contact with, and, we bounce ideas every now and then. So I think, there's a high priority on that versus marks, because I don't know if you agree, but I do think in school we prioritize marks over almost anything else, to the point where I think Australian schools prioritize marks over their kids' mental well-being. And it's just insane. It's like, for me, the number one thing we should be focusing on is just giving them a good experience and making sure they're doing well. They're not cutting themselves. They're not suicidal. Like, I think there's like 8,500 youth suicides last year, or attempted suicides last year, which is just huge.
Yeah, it's crazy. And, it's sort of sad because young people are really people pleasing sometimes. That's how you're raised when you're a child. And as it serves a purpose when you're really young, but then you become a teenager and you're still people pleasing. And like you said, the school may not be prioritizing your mental well-being above the achievement, which that's really just, it's sad. And I don't think that's the intention of most people, but it's just such a busy and big place, the way that we've set up schools.
Yeah, it's not teachers' intention. It's no one's intention. It's just a byproduct of the system that we're kind of in. Exactly. It's a byproduct of, I think, a lack of innovation to the education system, because we're still using the same foundational building blocks that we've used since like the 50s, even though, we've got electives and more options now, but it's still line up for class, go inside, sit down, raise your hand to speak, ask to go to the toilet, very structured sort of thing, which is why I love when people like you reach out to me who are in this education system and trying to make a change and really passionate about helping young people. Before we move on, I just remembered, I talk about this a lot, so I apologize if I'm saying this again to listeners. You mentioned you got a band 6 and then you went into teaching. I know for teaching, you don't need like a 99 ATAR. What was that decision like? Did you feel like you were wasting your potential almost?
Yeah, so my parents invested a lot into my education because they came from another country, and that's a big reason why they came here, is to be able to offer more opportunities to us as their kids. And I guess for me that result was really important at the end of school, for me to say, hey parents, look, I'm not taking it for granted. I'm really making the most of the opportunities I have. And so I did work really hard for that ATAR, and teaching was like a 74 at the time, and I ended up with like a 92 or something. I think back and I realize that the extra percent, and that's like, then you get the bonus points for being near an university and everything. And I do kind of look back and I think, man, I was really just trying to please people around me and didn't go deeply into myself and what is it that I really enjoy. And in some ways my career is fantastic because I found the opportunity to be able to mentor students going through school and to give the focus on the well-being of those students. But as a teacher, I actually have zero allowance in my time. It's a volunteer job that I do on top of my normal teaching load, and there's a lot. So it can be easily forgotten.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I use this exact example because I've heard a few stories of people who want to be teachers, but because they got a high ATAR, they felt like it'd be wasting a bit. They should be a lawyer. They should be an engineer. They should be something that's higher status in society. Which brings to a whole nother conversation I talk about, where teachers are kind of looked down on in our society, really sadly. When, in my opinion, it's like one of the most important roles because you're raising the next generation of lawyers, engineers, doctors, whatever. And that's where like the Finland education system flip it on their side. Like teachers are highly respected, and it's like a whole different thing. But it's interesting that you had this self-awareness to go, no, I want to be a teacher. Even though I got a 99 ATAR, I'm only going to go for a 74 requirement.
So the thing about valuing teachers is massive, and it's a whole thing. But my parents were really free, letting me choose what I wanted to do. I think there was just one comment when I said, no, I'm pretty sure I've decided on teaching and like majoring in languages. And I think they said, okay, that sounds great. And then there was like a sentence like, are you sure you don't want to use like your extra ATAR to access these other opportunities? And I was kind of like, none of it's sitting right with me. I can't imagine what that job would look like. So no, I didn't end up changing. I just stuck with my discussion with my mentor. And on that note, I was choosing between the languages that were available at my uni, which was more limited than what I was expecting. And in that choice, one of the languages had a scholarship that was big that went with it. So that's how I chose the scholarship. I chose that language based on that scholarship, and I did end up getting it.
Yeah, nice. Awesome. Well, look, so we've just kind of talked a bit about the pressures of high school and stuff. You work with kids all day, every day. You mentor kids as well. You've kind of, you got a high ATAR. You've been in that whole education system, so you understand how it works. What do you want to talk about when it comes to young people? Do you want to more focus on the pressure and more on self-discovery, or do you want to talk more about like how to get good marks, or do you just not believe getting good marks is as important as self-discovery?
No, self-discovery is way more important. I guess the first part of working on yourself is really unpacking to start with. And so looking back at assumptions that you have, external pressures that are on you, and it all happens subconsciously. You're not actually aware of it when it's happening. I wasn't aware when I was in school that I was focusing on people pleasing more than my own needs. And this is,
by people pleasing, do you mean you're making decisions based on other people's opinions as opposed to your own opinion?
Like it could be parents, teachers, mentors, just even society overall and what you see and are exposed to. But it's just that external. It's like the external was being valued more than my internal, and like even minimizing emotions and things like that in order to, just be like super agreeable and like, keep everyone else happy, really.
So what tips would you have for people who, because I feel like nothing's changed. I feel like people are still doing that. Maybe now more than ever. I feel like so many people are making decisions to go into a career when it's not really what they want to do and they're not that aligned with it. And as you mentioned earlier, it's like it shouldn't be a snap decision. Like, oh, I'm interested in this, I'm going to go study it. It's like, what? That's a 3-year commitment and like $30,000 minimum. It's like it shouldn't be a snap decision. You should be putting a lot of time and effort into figuring out what you want to do. Don't rush yourself.
Absolutely. So it's like, stop thinking about competition, right? Life is not this competition. You can't win at life. And stop with the comparison. It's not about impressing others or competing or acting out of fear that you're worried that someone will treat you differently if you don't, whatever. Like fear of losing out on like a social status or being seen as this type of person, like all of that needs to be done away with. So that's what I mean when I mean like starting to unpack that is getting rid of all of that. So getting rid of that junk and then starting to get curious about how you can find, first of all, like the real you under there, and then start thinking about purpose after that. So it's like you need to work out who you are before you can get really in tune with your intuition and find out where you really deeply want to go in future, where your passions lie, and redefining that success, because society tells you to be successful, but then the idea of success is associated with like money or a job title, and those things don't bring the happiness. So just learning how to live each day in the way that you're going to enjoy the process of living your life and not just attaining that particular goalpost. Yeah,
society's idea of success, which, as you mentioned, money, job status, all that sort of stuff, is usually external stuff as opposed to internal. Because even, we say success is the most dangerous word in the human language because it's so subjective. It's like if you're a bus driver who's on minimum wage, but you love picking up kids every day and dropping people off and you've got a good family and everything, then you're successful. And you could be more successful than someone who's worth millions and millions of dollars. It's totally internal. It's like the only person who knows if you're successful is yourself. And so just using that word, I think, is kind of dangerous because it's like, it's so layered. It's like, what is success? What are we chasing for? Instead, we need to be chasing for, as you mentioned, figuring out who you are. An analogy we use is like masks. So it's like when you're with your friends, are you wearing a different mask as in a different version of yourself? So lots of people have different masks. They've got masks with their family, masks with their friends, masks when they're at work. But when are you really taking your mask off and just being your true self around the people that you're surrounded by? And that's really what I think you should be striving to achieve.
Yeah. And like the biggest accelerant for self-discovery is travel. So that's where you've mentioned that you've got your Build Your Own Adventure program, and young people really need to be, if they're finding it hard to do the self-discovery while they're living at home in their towns, in their cities, they should go and travel, because honestly, getting away from everything that you're used to and that system of people around you and everything, and just going out into the world and inviting all the experiences that come with that and just being really vulnerable, it's a very quick way to learn about yourself and to have a deeper perspective in life and in the way you fit into the world as well. So it's about that process of getting in touch with yourself, aside from all of the other stuff that society is kind of telling you, and that way, making decisions from that place instead of the place of expectations from society.
Absolutely. And like, I know that anyone who's listening to this right now, or if I post this clip on TikTok or whatever, everyone's going to be like, oh, but COVID, right? Yeah, I get it. But man, as soon as COVID's over and travel's back, go travel. Like, and that is, a huge downside of COVID for young people who are turning 18, 19, 20. It's like, I wanted to travel, but now I can't. And now I feel like I'm too old to travel. Well, no, you're not. It's like, you can just travel whenever you want. But I think it's such an important thing, especially if you're in Australia, because we're so isolated from the rest of the world and we're very westernized. And so it's great to go see other cultures, Asian countries, Europe, and all that sort of stuff. Like, traveling for me is a huge priority, even though I haven't been able to do it in the past kind of 2 years. I also think it gives you massive independence. I think you have to start thinking critically, problem solve when you lose your passport or when stuff happens. You can't just call your parents because they're, ages and ages away. So it's this whole thing. It's very complicated, but I think it's really important that young people prioritize this. And yeah, as you mentioned, that's a big part of my Build Your Own Adventure program, or the Intentional Gap Year program, is traveling and exploring. And really, it's all about self-discovery.
Yeah. So having traveled over 25 countries, I absolutely learned about myself in that time. Like, more than any other months living in my hometown, going out and experiencing all of those different things, meeting new people, making those international friendships gave a really different perspective on how I fit into my world and what I enjoy doing as well. And it's partly why I got into languages, because I love traveling and I wanted to help young people travel the world. So,
and keep in mind, like, to the listeners, you got a scholarship. It's not like your parents paid for this. You weren't born like ridiculously wealthy and had everything paid for you. It's like, because people just, whenever they hear stories like this, they just make excuses. And it's like, you can either have excuses or results. You can't have both. So what do you want to do? If you want to travel, oh, I don't have any money. Okay, well, get a job and save up for 6 months, or push scholarships and figure out what you want to do. Australia is an incredible country. I'm sure you can find a way to travel or put yourself out there if you just think hard enough, instead of just complaining that other people have it easier.
Yeah, so the COVID excuse is only really here for the next few months, because by then everything will be open. So I think that those excuses, it sounds like the things I used to tell myself when I hadn't done the self-discovery inner work, because you really need to start observing the stories that you tell yourself and the way that they hinder you and they stop you, especially when you're trying new things. People are so quick to be self-critical and you don't even hear it. It's actually just the thought in your head.
Yeah.
And the story that you're telling yourself when you're starting something new is that you won't be good enough. And the first time you make a mistake, you like solidify that you are not good enough at it. And then you stop trying it, and then you stop doing new things, and you're less likely to discover the passion that you have for that. Yeah,
exactly. And I'm actually, have you read Seth Godin's book, The Dip?
No.
Well, it's like a super short book. I'm listening to it on Audible. And it's basically just saying, whenever you start something, you have to push through the dip. And the dip is, if you want to start snowboarding, the dip is 2 days of falling on your ass and, eating shit when you hit the snow because you don't know what you're doing. That's the dip. And you have to push through that. But once you can push through that, you're now, you're having a good time and stuff. And anything you do, there's a dip. And most people give up once they hit the dip. As soon as they face some sort of adversity, I think this generation specifically, because, and I'd love your opinion on this, but I feel like school really pushes avoid failure at all costs. It's just like, don't fail. These marks are bad. You failed. You got a bad grade. Fail. It's like, okay, so I don't want to fail. But then you get into the real world and you go, well, actually failing is a great thing because you learn from it, and you should encourage failure. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've got a lot of thoughts on that, because I don't know where that thought comes from. I mean, it's easy to point blame at one thing, but I don't know why we can't handle failure. Like, you cannot learn a language without failing. So always like trying to hone that in and just say, I want you to try and fail and make mistakes and get messy with it, because that's when you learn. Yeah, so.
Yeah, there's a quote, and it's like, there is no winning or losing, only winning or learning.
Yeah. I love it. I'm all about that. And that's that growth mindset where, you build the resilience, and it's like, hang on, I can handle this. Like, nothing's changed, and running the worst case scenario through your mind can help sometimes. Is like, okay, so what if I fail? What if the worst case scenario happens? And then you realize everything's still okay. People still like you. Like, you're fine. And it's just in your head. So
that was something I kind of came up with the other day, and I'm sure someone's already come up with it, and I'm just probably copying what they said. But this was an original thought of mine. And it was like, if you imagine like a pyramid or a triangle, and at the bottom of the pyramid is the biggest section, and that's like all your tiny inconveniences. Like, your phone doesn't power on, it takes longer, or your internet slowed down or whatever. And it's in little annoyances. They don't really matter. And then you go up to the next one, which is bigger annoyances, so on, so on, so on. When you get to the top of the pyramid, the tiny tip is like the most catastrophic things that can happen in your life, like your dad dying or something. I believe anything below the catastrophic ultimately doesn't matter that much. For example, when I was younger, our house burnt down, and we lost everything we had. And people would think, well, maybe that's in the catastrophic. But, because of that, we moved to Australia, and Australia's opened up so many opportunities for me, and so on and so on. And so I think by adopting that mindset of going, ultimately, long term, unless it's catastrophic, it's not really that bad, and I can recover from it. And so that's why I just think if you have that mindset, you'll be way more encouraged to try, as opposed to just, stay away from it.
Yeah, mindset is everything. So when we talk about like self-discovery before choosing to invest your time and energy and money into a degree, just getting that mindset of who am I really, and what do I deeply want? What do I deeply enjoy? What's my flow activity? That activity that I do where time passes without me realizing it because I'm just so enjoying the task. Like, that's what you should be doing in your life, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe in the modern world, you can find your flow activity, whatever you love doing, and you can find a way to make good money from it.
Yeah.
You know, because some people might be like, oh, well, I love doing this activity or something, but it doesn't pay well. Okay.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, look, money is important in life. Like, well, I'm not saying it's not important. It is important. There are ways to find other ways to monetize it. For example, you're a teacher, you have a wage, but now I know you're just launching it and you're just starting. You're creating this whole online course called MyHSC Mentor. You're tutoring kids one-on-one and stuff. You're making income outside of that, which means, you know, in the future, you might be able to travel and do more stuff. So there are other ways. And I've met other teachers who are doing similar stuff. Like, you just got to get creative. And as you said, it all comes down to mindset.
Yeah. So like mentoring is something I'm deeply passionate about, but the idea that I don't know that I would have, I don't know, I would have had to do a lot of soul searching to get to that point at 18, like when I was deciding my career. So I don't have regrets. Like, everything happened for a reason. But, you know, maybe if I had started doing some tutoring or something at 18 years old, I might have worked things out there. But yeah, you just don't know. I think at the moment, like, thinking about your motivation, like, why are you doing the things you're doing, and just like brainstorming it all out onto a list and like going, okay, well, really, you should only be doing like your career or your study because you have like joy and enthusiasm for that thing that you're training towards. So for me, I found mentoring is that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I get asked this question a lot, like, how do you find your passion? Which, again, passion is one of those words where it's like, it's kind of fluffy. It's like, I don't know what is passion. It can change, right? It's just, I think the what you said is like, what are you in flow? Like, when are you doing something and you're not worried about picking up your phone, you're not worried about anything, you're just doing it and you're having a fun time doing it, and that gives you a bit of an idea to what you might be interested in. Because I've also seen things like, a great example was, I had a guy on the show and he's like good at coding and computer coding, but he's also passionate about mental health because he suffered from mental health and he wants to help people with mental health. Now, if I was to say, how do you help someone with mental health? Well, you go join this company and you become a presenter, or you do workshops and stuff. Yes, that is one way, but that's not his strength. His strength is coding. And so what happened is, he's coding and he's developing an app for a mental health company. So he's working in a mental health company using his skill, and he's combined both together. And I was like, that's a really cool way of looking at it. Taking your skill and combining with what you're passionate about or what you're interested in, and combining them together.
Yeah, that's powerful. And like, you don't find your passion unless you try a lot of new things.
Yeah.
So like, even in the next 30 days, if you try one new thing every day, you're going to discover a new passion. But then it's about not jumping in too fast either. Like, people think, I've got this problem, I don't know what my future is. And they just find an idea and they cling to it, right? And then spend the next 4 years at university in it, and then trying the job. And then you find out 5-6 years later that you don't actually enjoy that, right? So it's instead of jumping in too fast, it's kind of good to just do like a mini trial of it. Like, I didn't start my HSC mentor without mentoring students first. I've mentored heaps of students, and then from that, now I've sort of tested it out, tried it, realized I love it and it's rewarding, and starting my own company in that, and starting my freelance once I've tested it. Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure if you've heard of it in the business world. It's called MVP. So M for mother, VP, minimum viable product.
Yeah.
And whenever you're creating a business or a startup idea or an app or whatever it is, what is your minimum viable product? What is the minimum version of your product that you can put out to the market and test it? And I do that through so many aspects of life. Whenever I'm creating something, I put it out to my friends and family and whoever it is, and test it slowly to tweak it. And so now it's ready. Now I can launch it. Instagram started as, all you could do was share photos. There was no stories or anything, right? They didn't go, oh, let's have an app with all these different tabs and stories and stuff. They just put this out. Yeah. Google was just a search engine. Now it's like Google Drive, Google Gmail, all these crazy things. Amazon started out with books. They just sold books. What is your minimum viable product? What is your minimum viable product for my HSC Mentor? You kind of mentioned that before. You were testing it on kids and mentoring kids. So I think something we should be promoting is, what is the minimum viable product for like a degree? How can you test a degree?
Love that.
And how do we do that? By trial and error, going into work experience, tasting as many possible careers as we can, and treating that like a minimum viable product.
Heck yeah. Yeah. That's it.
And so, did you do a lot of that when you were younger, or do you feel like you just jumped straight into it too early?
I feel like at the end of year 12, I actually remember the conversation. Like I remember where I was and everything. I sat down with my mentors and had the conversation about the careers, right? And I do feel like I sort of wanted to cling to something, right? I wanted the answer to my problem. And this, my mentor, who I love the advice that he did give, but I might have been in a different career if I just traveled for a year. I've never had that gap year, because the best time to do the gap year, and I love that in Australia it is such a possibility. Like people know the word gap year, that doesn't even exist in other countries. So it's the best time to do it. The earlier you do that gap year, the better. Once you finish your study, it's straight away like pressure into a career, and like, yeah, you want the wage as well. So you also want to, but there's just no time for a gap year after that. Like it's just really hard. I think the best time is after school.
And that's something I hear a lot. It's like, oh, I'll do that stuff once I'm graduated. It's like, no, you won't.
No.
It's like, well, why wouldn't you do it before?
Yeah.
It's like, I just don't get it. It's big. I just don't get it. It makes so much more sense to do it before you go into university and stuff. Also, HSC is a nightmare. It's so stressful. Like it's so much pressure on young people, and it's like, you deserve a break. You've just done 12 years straight of schooling. There's no harm in taking time off. I remember during my final exam at high school, everyone was cheering like, no more exams. And I was like, you're all going to uni. You've got an exam in like 3 months time. And then you're going to be into 4 or 5 years of more exams. It was like, yes, obviously I'm not taking away last high school exam, but it was just like, I just think you deserve a break. And, that's why I put together this program, which I've kind of mentioned to you. You know a lot about my program, but I guess trying to remove what I've told you about what I'm offering in this program, what would you like to do in a gap year? Like if you took a year off and you could do anything you want, what would you like to include in that?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of hostels where you just do like change sheets or clean the kitchen or whatever, and you get free accommodation to live there. Like that's such an amazing opportunity. Or even like the woofing, is it? On organic farm, just like picking fruit and stuff and travel as you go.
Backpackers.
Backpacking around. So there's a lot of those opportunities out there. There's like, I have friends overseas where it's free accommodation, go stay with them, like go travel. And if you don't have those friends yet, honestly, you go to one country, you're going to make a whole bunch of friends. And then from there, they all live in other countries and you can go there. Travel, getting out of your bubble is just, it doesn't matter where you go. Just get out of your bubble. And like in doing that, you discover so much. You're going to learn so much.
I'm just writing that down. Sorry. Get out of your bubble. I love that phrase.
Yeah. Get out of your bubble and find someone else that's living your dream. Like once you do discover whatever it is that you're really passionate about, find someone that's living your dream. Like after school, I had a careers, like I just put everything on a page. I just like brainstormed the heck out of it. And I had like air hostess, like be a whitewater rafting instructor, like just like fun jobs,
That'd be fun. I thought of my dad was like a big advocate, and I honestly, I may have done it. I definitely considered it, was like going to Canada and being like a ski instructor.
Heck yeah.
Or like, how fun would that be? It's like, take a year off, just go to Japan or somewhere and be a ski instructor, or just, you don't have to be a professional. You just need to be good enough to teach young kids and beginners and stuff. And you teach all morning, and then you get the rest of the afternoon to go hang out and just ski and snowboard or whatever. And then you get to attend all the parties, and like, it's such a cool thing. And actually, one of my family friends did that. He was a musician though, so he'd play gigs at like a ski resort, and he met his wife there.
Wow.
And there you go.
Yeah. No, I love the idea of doing the ski instructing, snowboard instructing, and then the reverse of that is like summer camps. So like you can, if you like summer camps better, you can chase the summer around the world.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of options. Yeah, like if I did a gap year, I definitely think I'd consider doing the snow sports instructing or a summer camp instructing because the friendships that you build there, and you just learn so much about yourself by being in that environment and being around so many people with different perspectives than you. I think if you surround yourself in life with people that all have the same perspectives and ideas, you're not going to take those risks and you're not going to like connect with yourself in a deep way. I just think when you meet new people and they've got different opinions, it makes you question everything that you knew before. So surrounding yourself with
Oh,
people that believe in you, backing yourself, because there's always going to be a voice in the back of your head that's like critical and self-doubt and all of that. But everyone has that. And once you notice that, like, you kind of throw caution to the wind a bit and just go, okay, well, that's not serving me. And you need to back yourself and find people to surround yourself that also believe in you.
something that young people don't realize is you might be in a friendship group from high school or something, and you've been in that group for a long time, and that is the norm to you. You have no idea what better friends are because that's all you've experienced. And it's like, of course, we don't know what we don't know, right? And so it's like, you have to understand, by getting out of your bubble, you could realize so much more. Like, it just I can't get this across enough, especially because where I live in Sydney, it's very much like, I live in the Shire. I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah.
And they call it the Shire Bubble.
Yeah.
It's basically in the Shire, everything we need is in here. We've got all the stores, we've got everything in this area. We've got beaches, it's a beautiful area, lots of bush, great area. However, because it's great, no one ever leaves. Like, people like are here, they've grown up here, they never leave. And I'm just like, I got to get out of here. I got to meet new people. You still see it. You go to the shops and you see people from high school, you see teachers and stuff, which is great. But it's like, I just think you should get out and experience as much as you can while you're young. Going back to what you said earlier about tasting and trying. I think Kerwin Ray, Kerwin Ray, he said something and he's like, how do you find your passion? Or how do you find your favorite flavor of ice cream? You taste each flavor. It's the exact same. You taste and taste and taste.
100%. And like, I think we're really attached to the idea of certainty in life. So you leave school and people all of a sudden, they want to know that you're certain about what you're doing next. But it's actually the reverse is true. I think if you just give up that certainty, the idea of certainty that you need to be certain, and just start tasting everything, trial things. It's honestly, curiosity is probably one of the really important ways to happiness.
Yeah, I think surrendering to life as opposed to trying to have it planned out and structured is one of the best things you can do. And you can't structure out your life, because you can have aspirations and dreams and goals and stuff, but you can't possibly structure out like 5 years. Every year is so different to me. You can't plan it because stuff happens you can't predict. And so I think it's so important that you are more fluid. You're open to these different things. I read a book called The Surrender Experiment, where it's all about that. And he just surrenders. And I didn't actually finish it because I got a bit sick of it. But the key message, all this amazing stuff just kept happening to him. He didn't want to do it, but he'd just be like, all right, you can come stay at my house or whatever. And then something crazy would happen from that, blah, blah, blah. It's the whole 1,000 doors method, which I talk about, which is like behind one door, there could be 1,000 more doors and you never know.
Yeah. And the surrender experiment, to me, that's just like the story of traveling. Is you're really surrendering yourself to whatever the world puts in your path and whoever. And my best friend is from Sweden. Like, you build lifelong friendships, and it really will change your life, you know?
Yeah.
It's like a guarantee. If someone goes traveling and it doesn't change their life or their perspective on themselves at all, like, come back and talk to me. When you go to, like, my favorite place to travel to is Japan. And from 25 countries, it's Japan because it is so different. I just love putting myself in that, like, outside your comfort zone, right? So getting outside your comfort zone. And Japan has such a beautiful way of their society being in harmony. And it's really different than Western culture. But in many ways, I admire it more.
Well, Western culture is very individualistic.
Yeah.
Whereas Japan is not, like, their collectivism. My sister actually did her PIP, PIP, like society and culture. She did Japan but she like explored Japan and like other countries and showed what were the difference. And the way she did it was through the pandemic. So like Western countries were like all grabbing toilet paper and stealing it for themselves, whereas the Japanese were kind of, but not as bad as other countries, because they're more, we're all, as you mentioned, in harmony.
Yeah. No, in Japan, it's more like they wouldn't buy enough for their home because they'd leave it all on the shelves to someone else. Like, they're so thoughtful. And yeah, it's a really beautiful way to live. So if there's any Aussie young people out there who are thinking, what will I do in my gap year? Honestly, a snow season in Japan would be like, that's the cream of the crop. That's an amazing thing to do with your gap year.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing. It's like, oh, what are excuses? Oh, but I don't have money to do that. Okay, join my program. work for 6 months. We'll help you get a part-time job, work for 6 months, go party, go to all the workshops we're offering. We're partnering with festivals. We're doing all this cool stuff. I'll
Yeah.
teach you how to save your money. I've got a saving strategy and an investment strategy. Save up like $5,000, $10,000. And then once you hit, I don't know, let's say September, go to Japan in September, and you've got September, October, November, December, spend 4 months in Japan. That's your year. And so it's like, yeah, you don't, even if you didn't get a $50,000 scholarship, or you don't have parents that can pay money or whatever, find a way. Just like work, get a part-time job, work, make money, save up, and then travel. My girlfriend, she went into sales position after high school, like door to door knocking.
Yeah.
And she was on good money, like good sales money. And she basically spent it all traveling. And she's been to like heaps of different countries. She traveled solo. She's like climbed the base camp of Mount Everest.
Yeah.
To Mount Everest base camp, which is intense in Nepal, and done all this cool stuff. And she's just graduated her degree at 26 years old. And it's like, who cares? It's like she values those memories and traveling so much more than if she graduated at 23.
Yeah, so she was committed to that, right? And it's really about commitment. So the voice that's saying no, stop giving power to that voice and just commit to your growth and just be like, no, this is what I want, and chase it. Change. That's all to do with like changing that perspective. Get curious. Like really, if you want something bad enough, you can do it. And plus, if you're going to Japan to work, you're going to earn money there. So
exactly,
it's really just about the flight. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's probably programs and stuff that will do it. Like all you have to do is apply for them and they'll sort it out for you. Like that's the beauty of the modern world. Like there's all these programs, the internet and everything. Like I just think, it's going back to what you just said just then. If you want to, you can find a way. Also, and just don't listen. Don't feel if you want to take a year off, if you want to travel, if you resonate with this entire episode and you're going, oh my God, let's do this. I'm about to graduate, especially now. Oh my God. If COVID is about to not finish, but like we're going to hit our vaccination rates at the end of the year. Hopefully we're going to open up to international travel next year. Like take a year off and travel. Like year 12 has sucked so much for this cohort because I've barely been able to do it. So I think now more than ever, you should be prioritizing this.
Yeah, like I feel like the current year 11 and 12, like they've been hit the hardest in the whole of the education system from my perspective as a high school teacher anyway. And in some ways, they're really demotivated, and probably the best thing for them is like, they might need to get vaccinated to do it, but go overseas, and go and travel. Now's the time. Yeah.
Join my program.
Yeah. But in some ways, now is the time. It's more important than before because they've felt really trapped and they've felt really demotivated and disillusioned with education systems. So,
well, it's funny because it almost feels like fate that like I'm running the beta program in December, January, February.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that lines up perfectly with us coming out of lockdown pretty much. So it's like, look, you're about to graduate. The restrictions are about to lower. I'm starting this program. Like, and we didn't plan this. Like we planned this before this new lockdown. So I think, we're going to try right off the back of it. Like, look, guys, you need to get out there, have some fun. Some people are 18, they've turned 18 or they're almost 19 and they haven't been able to go out once.
Yeah.
Like, how sad is that?
Crazy.
Yeah. But anyways, Beck, this has been a really cool episode. Like we went down I think this has been very good. I think it's very motivational for young people. Hopefully it can snap them into just thinking about different things. Like, you are in full control of what you do after high school. Absolutely. Don't let your parents or teachers influence you too heavily. Obviously take their influence and listen to what they have to say, but ultimately it's your decision. If you want to take a year off, take a year off. Like, and if your parents disagree, like just use COVID. Like, I don't know, get out of there. Like there's so much that you can do and it's so exciting. Just don't settle. Like don't settle out at 18.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome.
Nail in the head. Yeah.
Thanks. Beck, before we wrap up, what would your number one piece of advice be to younger people?
Yeah, like there's always going to be excuses and reasons not to do something, but the things that you say yes to show your commitment to growth. Yeah, say yes to yourself.
Yeah, it's like that movie Jim Carrey, Yes Man.
Yeah.
Like honestly, I rate that movie. It's such a good, I said yes to everything when I was younger. I still say yes to probably too many things, but it often works out. And if it doesn't work out, as we mentioned, failure is a good thing. It's not that bad.
That's it. So worst case scenario, play it through your head. It's really not bad. and just go after the things you want,
Hmm.
In a few months' time, you'll be able to do everything that you want to do. There's no stop telling yourself excuses and just start committing to what you really want.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, Beck, thanks so much for coming on the show. You've got this thing called MYHSC Mentor. A lot of people listen to the show either have someone or are maybe starting the HSC right now. They know someone. Do you know, just real quickly tell us a little bit about what that is and where people can go to find out more?
Yeah, sure. So it's just starting off with a free ebook at the moment. So everyone can head over to myhscmentor.com and download the free ebook. And then from there, I'll send you a bunch of information about the online course called Hack Your HSC and the option for group mentoring and a support group that we have, as well as one-on-one mentoring.
So this is really for people who are struggling in the HSC and looking for a little bit of guidance. Maybe, an alternative to tutoring, would you say?
It's really different than tutoring because I'm not actually there to help with the academic concepts, although I did do well in school and that I'm happy to sort of give general advice. But it's really about seeing you as a whole student and seeing the whole struggle going on in your week, in your month, and me sitting with you and helping you with them.
Yeah.
So helping you with a priority list for the week or time blocking for your weekly schedule, and also recognizing that you really don't need to give up socializing and time with family and friends to do well in the HSC. So I've just seen students coming through year after year making the same mistakes, and I'm basically here to try to give them the quick solve to all the problems.
Yeah, that's a big one. Like, you don't have to give up your social life. In fact, you shouldn't. If
No.
anything, I believe having a good social life will put you in a better state. And so you'll feel better, which means you'll be more motivated to study and get better results.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. Well, guys, go check that out. The link will be in the show notes below, but that's myhscmentor.com. Download the ebook, check out what else Beck has to offer. But otherwise, if people want to get in contact with you or follow you online or, figure out more about you, is that the best place to go, the website?
Yeah, no, look, please do look me up on any of the platforms. My HSC Mentor on all of them, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, all of it. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And all the links will be below. But Beck, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Great. Thanks so much, Byron.
Thanks.